Not really. All good. All right. Well, we talked a lot about playoff mistakes and some things that we do as hockey players that we goof on. Before we get into that, though, I know you might notice that there's somebody else on the chat with us. It's an old friend of mine named Katie Mack, and she is. Do you want to introduce yourself, Kate, and just let them know what you do briefly, and then we can get into what I do, and then you can jump into your stuff later.
Yeah, I help people optimize performance by working with their nervous system. And the way that we do that is by using different breath techniques to navigate the nervous system. So it helps with less fatigue, more concentration, more focus, more confidence. And so I help people breathe more efficiently and also use the breath to create a better performance for themselves.
Awesome. And here we're always trying to provide you with strategies that you can use, right? There aren't a lot of hockey players out there that are dialing into breath work, right? Most of us just make mistakes or we try harder or we, just going to be more positive and those things don't work. But what Katie brings to the table are actual tangible strategies that you can use before, during, and after you play. So I look forward to hearing what she has to say later on. But right now, what we'll do, thank you, Katie, is we'll share my screen. Hopefully what I need pops up. Bear with me one sec. All right. Let me know when you can see my little mentally charged. Yeah, good to go. Okay.
Yeah.
Does everybody see a few people down the right side?
Yep.
Okay. How about now?
I only see you.
Just me? Okay, that's good. So I'll just tuck my little bar down there and we'll get going anyway. So we know who I am, obviously, mental skills coach, pro player, Gatorade Summit. And what's awesome right now is the playoffs just started last night. Some of you were at the game there for the OHL. And I work with a lot of OHL players. And well, I'm fortunate enough right now to be doing that through Hockey Equality. So again, that's Anthony Stewart's company and Shantae, his wife, and they try to bring equity and inclusion. Sorry, we're trying to admit someone else in here. Equity and inclusion to the game of hockey. So if you are Black, Indigenous, person of color, female, we want to promote that hockey is for everybody. So that's enabled me to talk with these OHL players, and I made some notes that I'll share with you. Some big things that these kids are still doing as first round draft picks into the OHL, and they're playing at a very high level and they're very, very stressed still. And they're dealing with things that you might face, or maybe you're already facing them. So the purpose of this is to give you strategies and those tools so that when you face adversity, you're ready for it. But as we prepare for these big moments, obviously we want to boost your mental toughness. Before we get into today's lesson, though, I want to go over kind of what we talked about last time. And we talked about the power of yet. So when I'm talking to my athletes, and people are down on themselves because we want results right away. Of course, this game of hockey is very important to us. We eat, sleep. We try to do our mental training. We're dry land training. We're on ice training. We're doing all these things. But we want results right away, right? And if we don't get them, we beat ourselves up. So I always talk about the power of yet. You're not quite there yet. Trust the process. There are many, many obstacles you're going to face. And yes, they're uncomfortable, but we need to understand the power of yet is okay, right? We are striving towards our goals. So we talked about that last time. Power of yet. So remember that when you're frustrated. We also talk about what doesn't work here, and parents and coaches. And I used to say these things myself too when I was younger. When I was coaching, when I was a young coach, didn't quite understand that they need tangible strategies. They try harder. You got to pick it up, forget about it, right? When you make mistakes, you come home afterwards, you're beating yourself up. Your parents are like, you know what? Tomorrow's a new day. Just forget about it. Or we're going to just be more positive. And we know that these strategies don't really work. Yes, they're encouraging. And yes, a coach and a parent kind of wants to take that pain away from you. So they come up with these 3 strategies, but it really doesn't give you any tools to actually compete. And my mother's calling me. Hold on one second. Sorry, I had to ignore that. It doesn't give you the framework and the foundation that you need to actually get better, right? I can't pick you up and say, okay, tomorrow we're going to build a house. And you're going to look at me and say, I don't know how to build a house. And I'll say, you know what, man, just be more positive. Come on. We're going to try harder. So we know that means nothing. So we're getting into some tangible strategies today with myself and Kate, which I'm looking forward to as well. Wrong transition. There we go. All good. We are obsessed with outcomes. And again, I took these notes with these OHL players, and a lot of them are, you know, I was playing great, and then a player came back into the into the lineup rather, and I deserve more ice than him because I was on fire. You know, I want to be on the power play or the penalty kill, or I want to be the one that scores goals or get the starting rotation as attendee. And we need to focus on the process instead of that outcome. Sorry, I was trying to admit Mason.
I don't want it on. I'm just watching right now.
Good. Okay, so try not to obsess with things that are too big in the outcome, you know, power plays, wins and losses. What am I going to do at the next level? Am I ranked? As you get older here, these things are around the corner for most of you, as to, you know, wherever you decide to go, the OHL Division 1, Division 3, even, you know, U18 and the juniors, OJ, whatever level you're playing at, let's try not to focus on outcomes all the time because it just kind of messes with your outlook. Focus on that process and trying not to be perfect. All right. So another problem that we see, and we talked about this last time too, is individuals, they played like that. They play like individuals. They just think in me, my, and I, right? And we see that in the play, you know, people watching you, people that are going to be judging your performance and what kind of a player you are can see if you're, you know, taking the right line changes. Are you crossing opponents' teams' blue lines 1-on-3 or 1-on-2 and you're trying to toe drag yourself? Do you get pucks deep? Do you take the wrong route when you're in your own zone and you're a winger and you're trying to chip that puck out? Are you trying to chip it and go for a breakaway? You know, there's a ton of different scenarios on the ice that we see, especially in playoffs. Everyone wants to take the game on their back and try to win it and be the star. And it really comes across as not a team player. So we talked about buying into a team identity. I know from my own personal generals, we talked a lot about our offensive identity and what that looked like, how we were going to enter zones, what were our options in that situation, how were we going to, you know, do line changes specifically. So you have to actually be a player that buys into the identity of the team, and the coach will reward you for that and love you for that. So remember that when you're in big pressure situations, you don't have to do it all yourself. And we also talked about how the best players in the world struggle, right? And we always tend to worry about production, and that kind of tied into that last slide that I was showing you. The reality is that if you stay the course and you continue to focus on the process, results will come. Okay, you know, in January, John Tavares had a 10-game slump, and Brock there on Vancouver Canucks, he was in a 6-game slump, and he was their leading goal scorer at the time. You don't think these guys were ready to lose their minds? 1,000% they were, but pro players stay the course, they stay focused. And sure enough, John Tavares breaks out of his slump. And I think Brock, the next game, his 7th game, he ended up scoring 4 goals. So it comes. And we spoke about that last month as well. We also talked about this problem too, where we tend to focus on the misses, right? And we got to look at those misses not affecting the rest of your game and not affecting your energy. Okay. How many shots a game does the average hockey player have? Maybe 3, 4 at most. You know, Ovechkin and those players that get a ton of shots, they're maybe 5 shots a game. Takes maybe a second or 2 per shot. So you're looking at 6 seconds of a game that's going to affect the rest of the minutes. So what are we doing mentally for the next 44 minutes? Just 1 second, please, as somebody calls my house. Thank you. Yeah, so what are we doing then the last 45 minutes of that game, or 44 minutes and 54 seconds? We can't let our confidence and our effort level affect each other, right? We can't have that confidence dip because we missed a few shots, and then all of a sudden the effort lowers as well. That's not acceptable. So just think about that as you're playing in these games. We can't focus on the misses because we can't waste that time, you know, 2 and 3 periods before we bounce back. Also, when we're frustrated and we're struggling, your body language speaks volumes. So you have to be really aware of this. I remember playing at Canisius myself, Division 1, And I remember pouting and slamming gates because I didn't get the call the last minute or two of a game. And I remember my coach Kavanaugh talking to me about that body language. He's like, how can I trust to put you on the ice when you're mentally falling apart? Your body language stinks. Yeah, he gave me an analogy and said, if I was an NHL coach right now, would you be behaving that way on the bench? And I was like, oof, had that light bulb moment. I was like, totally not. I would not be doing that. I wouldn't be acting like a goof. So be a better teammate as well. When you pout because you missed an opportunity, all it's doing is telling everyone in the rink, your bench, your coaches, and all your brothers and sisters that you're going to work with, that you're selfish. So stay the course and be better teammates. Okay, so on tap today, we're just going to review a couple things here. We're going to talk about the comparison trap and what that looks like. We'll review accurate assessments of your own ability, how we play quiet and safe sometimes, and we have the wrong definition of confidence, and how most times we don't like doing difficult things. And I'm going to show you a couple videos that will illustrate why it's important to do that. And we want to talk about attitude when you're out on the ice, verbally, and how you portray yourself with your body. And I want to also talk about roller coaster confidence and what that looks like. Everybody with me so far? If you have any questions, you can type them or just raise your hand and we'll address it as we go through here. Good to go? Cam, good? Awake? Beauty. All right, so the first problem that we see and we'll talk about today is the comparison trap. Now, this is a big thing in sports psychology world. And as much as 10% of our thoughts involve comparison of some kind. Now, Theodore Roosevelt had a saying that was, comparison is the thief of joy. Comparison is the thief of joy. So what does that mean? When you compare yourself to others, that thought process is the thief, which means you're taking away from your own personal joy, the intrinsic goodness that you feel from working hard and planning and striving and all that good stuff. When you start to compare yourself to other people, that's the thief of your own joy, okay, when you look outwards. But I heard a guy named Adam Grant talking about this exact same quote, and he said that he wants to change the word comparison with envy, right? He thinks that when you compare yourself to others, it can be positive, right? As long as we look up just a little bit. And this is about having a realistic expectations of your own ability, right? You can't be here and look at somebody way better than you, who's way more advanced, who maybe has planned more, prepared more, maybe just having more success. And you can't be like, well, I should be him and he shouldn't get those opportunities. If you look up just a little bit, and the same holds true with business and in life. If you want to be a little bit better, surround yourself with people that are a little bit better, that are a little bit more successful. So look up just a little bit, right? And he changed the word, Adam Grant, to envy, because envy is all about wanting what other people have. And that's kind of a poor trait to have, especially as a hockey player. And again, when I talked to these OHL players last night, one of them was talking about playing really, really well and earning ice time, and went from 22 minutes a game to someone else coming in the lineup, and then they were dropped back down to 9 or 10 minutes. Now, all he talked about is how envious he was of the other player. And I said, look, you can't have that perspective, because all you're doing, see these fingers that are pointing? It's like you're pointing at everyone else and you're not looking inward. What is it that is missing from your game if you're not getting minutes like that? And if you're not getting minutes, I said to him, why don't you have a conversation with your coach, come at it with a good positive connotation and say, hey, look, coach, I just went from 22 minutes a game down to 10. What is it that I can do to be someone you trust and to get on the ice as much as I used to? Okay. So just be aware of the comparison trap. If you see yourself looking around and pointing at everybody else and I want that, and that guy shouldn't play, and I should be out there, and I should be on the power play, and I didn't get the opportunity, point, turn your fingers inward and realize, are you comparing yourself to someone that's just a little bit better than you, which might be a good thing? Or are you envious and starting to feel and view things as negative? That should be me. I want what he has, right? There's a big difference there. That makes sense? Thumbs up? Okay. So it's not bad to compare. Just look up a pinch. Might help motivate you to strive for even more greatness. All right. Okay. So I love this little, I call them buckets. and this is through the coach's lens, so this might help you as to, why am I getting ice or why aren't I getting ice? Some athletes are super confident, and it's because they work hard and they have production for the most time. They're the ones that can get to the puck. They can win the hit battle. They can outmuscle their opponent. They separate the puck from the player. Then they get their feet moving. Then they get their head up, and then they make plays. So that's like a lot of things to happen in order for a coach to trust that player, as well as for that player to feel really, really confident. Okay, so that makes sense in that bucket there. And those are the players that are on the ice the last minute of games. So if you're not yet, like we talked about earlier, the power of yet, if you're not on there yet, that means you probably aren't in this bucket of confident yet. Okay, where the coach trusts you enough to do all those things, get there, win the hit battle, POP, make a play, right? At those times. Where most of us fall is in this capable bucket, where we working hard, but we don't always have the results. We see glimpses of it, and everyone thinks that believe in you and they think you're capable of it, but it doesn't always happen all the time. So that might be up to the coach's discretion as to whether or not he puts he or she on the ice at that moment. And then the third bucket, of course, they're the crazy people that are like, my son's the best on the ice, my kid, hands down, bar none, and those players, they don't tend to work really hard all the time, and they're not consistent, and they don't produce, and they don't accurately assess their own ability. So when you look at these three buckets, think to yourself, where do I land? Am I confident? Am I capable? Or am I a little delusional? And that's an okay thing to do. Look in the mirror and see where you're at. And speaking of looking in the mirror, the problem with us is that we don't accurately assess our ability. So we're not judging how good we really are. And as kids, this is really hard for you because mom and dad and, aunts and uncles and grandparents, they come in and they go, oh, he's the best, she's amazing. And they're working so hard and we love them so much. And we see the sacrifice and the investment that they put in. They're great, great hockey players. And everybody loves their own kids. Okay. I love my own son too. I think he's a wonderful hockey player as well. But you also have to look at what you do well, look at what you need to improve on. And in comparison to other people, what can we strive to be like? Remember, just look up a little bit and see who's getting some more ice time. But let's not be delusional. Let's not look in the mirror and think, I'm the greatest. If you can look in the mirror and you have creditable experience, right? Which means things have actually happened in your life. I actually did that. I actually was on the power play. I actually played the last few minutes of a game. I actually scored when it counted. I got my shutout. Those are experiences that are creditable that happened. Then you can say, I'm pretty good and I'm on the right track. But if it's not and it's hit and miss, it can be like, all right, I'm capable. I believe in myself. I'm going to continue to work towards a goal because I'm not there yet. So keep looking in the mirror. Don't point the finger at everybody else. Turn it inward. I'm not sure if I showed this last one again, but this has another self evaluation piece where you're looking in the mirror. What kind of player am I? I'm going to give you 2 seconds to look at those, and then we'll just talk about what kind of player you think you are. Are you type 1, type 2, or type 3? Does that go Bay in the background? Goats? Oh, what's up, buddy? Whitby, Wildcat, Braden Go Bay in the house. There we go, brother. What kind of player are we? I might call on some people. I can't see all of the hands because I've just got my little thing down the side. Anybody want to put their hand up and think or share which one you are? Yeah. Mason, what do you think, brother?
I think I'm a type 2 player.
Type 2. Okay. So that's a good evaluation piece, a self-evaluation. He's thinking, you know what? I got some skills, but I might be a B in mindset. And that's why you're here right now, because you're learning these strategies and you're bolstering your game, which is huge. Good job, man. That's okay. And there's no wrong answer either. Anybody else?
Brent has his hand raised.
Say, yeah, I can't see. Brent, what do you think, buddy?
Probably like type 2.
A, there you go. A in talent, A in mindset. That's the ideal player for sure. Carter, what do you think, man? Popovsky, you had your hand up, brother?
A type 2 player.
Type 2? Okay. Now, what do you think is ideal? Obviously, type 1, right? We all want to be the best talented player, and we also want to have an A+ mindset. What do you think about type 2 versus type 3? What do you think's better there? Maybe as a through a coach's lens, which do you think might be a better type? Presto, what do you think, buddy?
Probably type 3.
Type 3. Yeah, I think you're right, man. A lot of coaches would sacrifice a little bit of talent to have a kid that's will soak up all the information with his mindset and apply it to his games. So if you're sound in the mind and you generate good habits and you start building some momentum mentally, and you're learning all these things. Even myself, like this year I coached, I had a new coaching staff, a new coach on my staff who coached 900 junior games. And I listened and learned a ton, and I filtered in all of his messaging and I soaking it in, right? And that helped me become a better coach. So I like type 3, I like type 2. And if you're type A right now, it just means that you're not there yet. You're on your way. That makes sense? Good little visual for you guys. All right. Coaster confidence. What's I call this coaster confidence? Because it's like, we're great, and then we suck, and then we're wicked, we feel good, and then not so well. This was my whole career, by the way. One of the most frustrating parts, looking back, I wasn't able to get it together because I was amazing some games, and then other games I wouldn't have any confidence. I call this coaster confidence. And the problem is because we seek praise. Okay, we come home.
Yeah.
How'd I do? How'd I do? You know, we seek this praise meaning your mom or dad say, oh, what a great game. Or your grandfather comes over and says, wow, you were the best out there. And then you feel good, right? And we're seeking this and it's external. And then when we don't play well, the confidence dips. And then it's great again, and then it dips again. And we call this up and down, or I call it coaster confidence, where it's up and down. You have to find your own greatness. And we do that by looking inward out. We don't do that outward in. If you're a hockey player, and again, said it to my 2 OHL guys yesterday, if you're a player, and one of them is right now, who is seeking external things all the time, ice time, goals, starting, accolades, championships, wins and losses, if you're that guy that focuses on all of that to feel good inside, you have it backwards, which means that all of you kids here right now are ahead of the game because you are all working inside out. You're focusing on the little things that you do as a forward, a center, winning draws, moving your feet, cutting ice in half with the stick, 5-foot forechecks, shooting when you have the opportunity, getting inside dot lanes when you shoot, good line changes, blocking shots, all those good things. That's just one position. But you have all those little things that you're working towards. When you hit those, you feel good inside. It's called intrinsic value, where you feel good inside. And then as a result of you doing all of those things, you then get rewards. You then get praise. You then get ice time and championships. So remember that. You need to build your own greatness from inside out. We don't want to seek this. So if you sense yourself going, well, I want to be on the power play, I want to be able to do it last minute. Those are huge red flags, kids. Okay. Inside out, not outside in. Okay. So I love that slide. Coaster confidence. Don't be that seeking praise all the time, over and over. All right. A huge slide there. This is a quick slide here. I've been at practices where we are super quiet, right? Super quiet. There's no emotion. People are tired, worn down, especially in the playoffs. We act and play quietly. We're going to play and be quiet. It's just not going to work. Sorry, I just got one of our members just texting me there. Okay, so we have to have some excitement. I can speak to my own son. He pulled his groin in a Kingston tournament, January 16th. He didn't play for 6 weeks. When he finally came back to practice, he was very quiet, doing the drills very quietly. And I'm like, where are you, man? Come on, you're back, you know, but he didn't feel good. And it took him a while. It took him about 2 or 3 weeks before he was like, let's go, boys, like starting to get and have a little bit more of a jump in practice. So again, that's a mindset. We go into practices. We want to be outgoing. We want to be upbeat, have a sound, have a voice, and that can be through your body language as well. All right, we're getting close to the end here before we pass off to Katie. But another problem is we focus on confidence and we do it in the wrong way. We're looking for confidence in how we look, the things we have, and maybe the achievements that we're getting. Okay. Again, what I talked about earlier with intrinsic rewards, we need to learn how to do hard things so that we feel good inside, right? We set a difficult goal just above what we're capable of, like we talked earlier, and that helps us learn, think, and grow as we get better. So I want you to listen to Dr. Huberman. He's a neuroscientist. He's one of my favorites. And I'll show you a 2-minute clip about the mid-cingulate cortex. It's a part of your brain that he'll explain. It has to do with resilience and you becoming a tougher, more resilient individual, not just on the ice, but in life. Okay, let's watch here. He's talking about not doing hard things. We want to build this part of the brain. Katie, can you let me know if everybody can hear this when I play it?
Called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. As we pointed out before, that's a noun, it's a name, it doesn't mean anything. We could call it the Cookie Monster.
Right.
But what's interesting about this brain area is there are now a lot of data in humans, not some mouse study, showing that when people do something they don't want to do, like add 3 hours of exercise per day or per week, or when people who are trying to diet and lose weight resist eating something.
Right.
When people do anything that they, and this is the important part, that they don't want to do.
Right.
It's not about adding more work. It's about adding more work that you don't want to do.
Yes.
This
I'd like
brain
to
area
watch this
gets
video.
bigger.
Yep.
The anterior mid-cingulate cortex is smaller in obese people. It gets bigger when they diet. It's larger in athletes. It's especially large or grows larger in people that see themselves as challenged and overcome some challenge.
Right.
And all the data point to the fact that we can build this area up.
Yep.
But that as quickly as we build it up, if we don't continue to invest in things that are hard for us, that we don't want to do, that's the part that feels so Goggin-esque
Yes,
to
sir.
me, that we don't want to do.
Mhm.
Like if you love the ice bath, yeah, I love the ice bath, and you go from 1 minute to 10 minutes, guess what? Your anterior mid-cingulate cortex did not grow.
None.
But if you hate the cold water, if you're afraid of drowning and you get into water and put your head under, then your anterior mid and survive, then the anterior mid-cingulate cortex gets bigger. But if you don't do it the next day, or if you do it the next day and you enjoy it, because hey, I did it yesterday, woohoo, happy me, Merry Christmas, as you would
Right.
say.
Merry Christmas.
Guess what? The anterior mid-cingulate cortex shrinks again.
Yep.
Called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. As we pointed out before, that's a noun, it's a name, it doesn't mean anything. We could call it the Cookie Monster.
Right.
But what's interesting about this brain area is there are now a lot of data in humans.
All right.
Not some mouse study,
Goodness gracious. Hold on
showing
one
that
second.
when
My-
people do something
The bar
they
is in
don't
the
want
way.
to do, like add.
All right. All right. So that mid-cingulate cortex, it's responsible for getting, willpower in essence, right? And building your motivation and your resilience. So when you want to be better, I challenge you to do difficult things. And I could speak to it personally, right? My biggest fear in my life, ironically enough, is public speaking. And I do these talks, and 3 days prior to these talks, I get all nervous, my palms sweat. I'm like, what are people going to think? Are they going to like the program? Are they going to like my message? Are they going to believe me? And that's very difficult to deal with, which is good and bad. But as I do it, I know that my parts of my brain are getting bigger and stronger, and I am building my resiliency. So I challenge you, just like Andrew Huberman, to do difficult things. And every time you do, know that your brain is getting bigger and your willpower is increasing. Okay. Couple more slides here. This is a basketball coach talking about, poor attitude and poor language, or poor language, probably the same thing. Yeah. Poor attitude, poor body language. What we need to do is focus on your attitude, which we talked about earlier as well, because your body language screams volumes. Now, this is a basketball example. Let's watch this quick video about attitude and how it's observed by everyone who's watching.
Jay Wright's built arguably the best program over the past 5 years. They've won 2 national championships, and he's built it on one word: attitude. Here's how they measure that.
Where is your mindset after something bad happens to you?
And they create adverse situations in practice just to see people's response. They train the behavior, and that behavior was on full display in the 2016 national championship game. Take a look.
It's Barry. You had the hot hand from 3 in the first half. They're going to have to do something from the outside now. It's Page off the
All right, so Jay's going to tell you what happened before that and right after.
We've blown a 10-point lead. We've done a lot. We'd given up a 3 before that. The only thing you could do wrong on that play was give up a 3. We did it. And the guys were coming off the court, walking to the huddle, and they're all saying, attitude, attitude. Not one guy complaining, not one guy saying, do you believe that shot? And we're in the huddle, and they're all just looking at each other like, it's what we do. Attitude is what we do. I didn't, if it could have ended right there, I would have felt like they had the greatest lesson in life.
It didn't end right there.
Go length of the court with Archie Diacono. 3 seconds at midcourt. Jenkins gives it to Jenkins.
Jay Wright's built arguably the
Can you make sure my phone's charging?
All right. So last slide here before I dip off.
You turn on the car.
Chit chat. Can we make sure that we mute here, folks, for me just before we? Yeah. So pretty cool slide there. Attitude, positivity. They're down and out, and of course they come back with an amazing basket there to win a championship. All right. So last mistake that we see here is that we don't accept things very well. And I always talk about having an 8 out of 10 mindset, which is huge. A little bit of room for mistakes, so we don't go into games and practices thinking we're perfect. And there's room for improvement too. If we have a consistent 8 out of 10 mindset, coaches are going to love it. You're going to feel good about how you're striving and working towards your goals. All right. So we get out of that. We reviewed what we did for some playoff mistakes last time and gave you some good strategies. This time, I guess now, just to see if there's been anybody in the chat. We're good. I will pass it over to my dear friend, Katie. Any questions actually before Katie jumps in? Anybody have any thoughts or opinions about what we just talked about for 20, 30 minutes? Anybody? No? Okay. Well, what we'll do too at the end, if we have any questions, Katie and I can stick around and if you have personal questions, you can ask at that time. All right. Good to go, Kate?
I heard somebody say they had a question just now. Did I?
Corey, I have a question.
Oh, it's Will, and your mic's real quiet.
Next year we have a non-parent coach coming in. Like, do you have like any tips, like, heading into tryouts, stuff, to, like, impress the new coach?
Did you hear what he said, Kate? Because I can't hear it on my end.
No, can you say it again?
We have a non-parent coach coming in
Okay.
next season, and like, do you have any like tips for tryouts?
Aha. So non-parent coaches are coming in. I don't have a job myself because this new organization with Clarington and Oshawa are coming together and they went non-parent for all U14 to U18, which has its benefits and its perks and some downsides as well. I think that if you focus just on what it is that you bring to the table, Will, you're going to be okay. You get into trouble when you start worrying about what people think about you. And again, that's an external distraction, right? You can't really focus on or control, for that matter, what someone is going to think of you about your ability. So what can you control? You can control your effort and your performance and what it is that you bring to the table. So if you're a stay-at-home D that moves the puck, you're a heads-up playmaker, you can do those things, and that will start building some momentum on your end. But the last thing you want to do in this situation is, I wonder what he's thinking. Oh, he didn't look at me. Oh, he's writing on a pad of paper, and you start getting nervous with all these things. And again, you're outside. And remember, we want to build from inside out, not outside in. Okay. And be simple and smart. You don't have to go out there and go, oh, new coach, I'm going to do everything to kind of impress that coach. It never works. Just stay true to your game. And yeah, I think you'll be all right, man. It's an exciting time for all kids because you don't always just play with the same player over and over, or coach over and over again. So that makes sense? Thumbs up, buddy. All right, bro. Anybody else have any questions? Who's that ding dong behind you, Cam Stevens? Who's that guy? Okay. Couple of the boys. Nice. All right. Katie, you're up. Ready to roll?
Yes. Just want to clarify, we ended 11:30?
We do, yeah. But if it goes over, I think we can.
End at 11:30.
Yep. That's all right.
Yeah. Great. So, okay, I'm gonna hop right in and share my screen. Okay. Everybody can see this, okay? It's good. All right. Okay, everything that Corey is talking about, I want to just have you see it through the lens of your physiology for a moment, because that your mind is connected to your body is connected to your mind, right? And so the way that we can address practical tools in any given moment of any given stressor, of any given thought process, the best way to navigate that is through your breath. The breath is a language inside that is either responding or promoting. So you can direct the breath or you can listen to the breath. And in doing that, you actually master a big part of your protective stress responses. You also affect the way you recover. The way, let's say, that attitude, that's basically recovering. Everything that you're thinking about when it comes to comparison or that next step, you're thinking, how am I going to be okay right now in my optimal, in my potential, in my ease, for that later result. But if we don't recover well, then when you start that process, you're actually starting off at a deficit. And so in order to maximize that ability, you need to start understanding how your breath is your best friend. You're the one that's breathing, nobody else. Just like that validation aspect, you're the one that's validating yourself. It doesn't really matter. You can take in, right? We breathe in. You can take in all the praise and all the things. You can take it in. But what you give out, right? It plays a part in that interaction. So when you think of breath, yes, there's an in and there's an out. What's happening in the meantime? What's happening to you in that simple process of the breath? Here, this is me. This is what I work with. I work with people to understand that cellular respiration and the mechanics of their breathing actually are a big asset to anything they're looking to perform. So if you get anxious by public speaking, guess what happens when your palms are getting sweaty and you're not feeling that you could, your brain starts to race? These are normal, typical nervous system's responses to protect you. You don't feel safe. Okay, you have a new coach coming in, you don't know who it is. Your mind starts going. your protection is starting to activate. Your nervous system is starting to activate. Okay, you have a big game. Does anybody, breathe differently when you're thinking about the big game coming up? Do you breathe differently in that moment when they announce your name and you go on the ice and everybody's watching you? Do you breathe differently when you score that winning goal or when you're benched? If you notice, you actually are breathing different in all of the moments, but your breath is telling you certain things. Okay. So, one, are you delivering oxygen properly? Your breath is going to tell you that. Okay. If you're not delivering oxygen properly, guess how you're breathing? You're trying to get breath. You don't have enough oxygen. Okay. If you're afraid, guess how you're breathing? Okay. One thing I'm doing right away is a mouth breath. When you breathe through the mouth, you're actually in a frantic, more panicked breath. Breathing in through the mouth is a secondary source. It's like I have no other resource. I have to breathe through the mouth. So your oxygen delivery when you breathe through your mouth is on a panic mode. It's not so efficient. What does that mean for your brain and your reactions? They are now altered. They're sending stress signals to your nervous system. They're actually changing the way your eyes see, and they're changing the way your ears hear. It's incredible. It's very subtle, or maybe not. When you're really stressed, what are you really thinking about? You zone in. You think about basic things and you repeat probably the same thought. That's because your focus of your eyes and your ears are changing based on not having enough oxygen. You're not utilizing your oxygen enough. So when you use breath control, you're actually maintaining your energy. Think about it. If you breathe like this, and you're out of breath, oh, and that sprint, it was so hard. And then let's say somebody's going to ask you to then go do, you don't get your 30 seconds. Maybe you can't get off the ice. What's happening? Fatigue is setting in. It's a cascade of effects that is going to affect the way you think. Okay. But you can actually learn to control and manage the energy within. And sometimes, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this as the slides go on. Sometimes it's just a matter of closing your mouth. If you reset the breath response, you can reset the amount of oxygen you're able to actually use. Okay, I'm going to get into that. So how else do we want to look at using breath training to improve your performance? I've already mentioned enhanced recovery. I'm jumping around here, but the lactic acid threshold. This is super important. When you're burning out, and we're talking emotionally, mentally, physically, these are all stages of burnout. They are releasing a sense of fatigue that is the mentality that starts to decrease how you see yourself and your confidence, what you're capable of. It's a physiological response. It's sending lactic acid into your system because it's saying, we got to reset this thing. So when you're in that zone of really that roller coaster of confidence, when you're on the lows, trust your body is resetting something. Okay, you went really high, you went really low. That's what lactic acid threshold is. That's what managing your stress response is and your recovery is. We want to think, what do we do physiologically in order to make sure I don't go so low? And sometimes even that confidence roller coaster, that idea in ourselves is like, we are the best, like that delusion, we are the best. And we're not really seeing through the mirror. That's because that's not in your zone either. You're not really in yourself. So these breath techniques are a direct route into yourself in the actual moment. So I want you all to take a breath right now and pay attention to that breath. Okay, and then keep paying attention to your breath. What's your next breath doing? Okay, take another breath. Don't rush it. Just listen, just breathe. Pay attention to your breath. Okay, again, keep going. Maybe 10 more seconds. Stay focused on your breath. Just notice it. Okay? Now, were all those breaths the same? Or did they change the more you noticed them? I saw some people end up getting like a breath reflex at one point. I saw some people relax. I saw some changes happening. Just by you noticing and putting your mind on your breath. It's communicating. And so you actually can get into the whole relaxation of your body just by paying attention to your breath. It's really powerful. So if we're out of ourselves and we're just responding and going, and or we're tightening, we're angry, we're tightening in the breath, we're holding the breath, we have no self-navigation. We're just letting our reactions, letting our attitude just respond. But just by going into the breath, you now are a team player with your actual physiology, with your actual behavior, and your energy efficiency. So energy, do we know what energy is? Do we know that when we eat food and drink water and breathe well, that we can create a certain amount of energy to produce movement? And our movements can create a whole bunch of things. You could build a building. You can skate really fast. You can sit up, or slouch. Right? All of that takes energy. And even when you're sleeping, you're using energy to heal, to recover, to build bone, to build different cells, right? So energy is a huge part to understand. And there's also energy, when you talk about it, it's like a sense, right? Oh, when I relax, I'll have a sense. I have a sense of what I'm feeling. There's an energy. Okay, so what I want to bring into your practice, your mental practice, is the idea of carbon dioxide tolerance. So we all know that we need oxygen to make energy, correct? We have to breathe in order, we have to take water. Water has oxygen, right? We need to use oxygen. But what most people don't realize, because the waste that we breathe out is carbon dioxide, and most people think that's a bad thing because it's waste. Okay? But I want you to understand that carbon dioxide tolerance is your superpower as an athlete. Why would carbon dioxide tolerance be your superpower? Because carbon dioxide tolerance is the pressure in your cells, in your blood, that tells the body how to use oxygen. So the oxygen will attach onto a transportation cell, right? You breathe in through the lungs, it doesn't stay in the lungs, it has to go to the blood, right? So it has to go onto a cell that takes it somewhere to where you need it. Your muscles, your brain, your intestines. It's got to take it where it needs it, okay? That hemoglobin will hold on to that oxygen unless there's a certain amount of pressure that says, let go. We need it. We need that oxygen. Let go. Okay, you got that? So the carbon dioxide tolerance is that pressure. So if we don't have normal pressure in our breathing, meaning You have a shallow breath. You have a quick athlete's breath. That so many runners, so many skaters are breathing with their mouth open. I call it an athlete's breath. If you're doing that all the time, or even in your sport, guess what's happening? There's no pressure. It's just trying to get the oxygen. But the hemoglobin can't take it to your extremities and to your brain. It's far away from the lungs, isn't it? It can't take it there if it doesn't have a pressure. So what I want you guys to work on is creating the awareness of that pressure in your physiology. And that will transform how you create pressure and go up against pressure in your actual performance. If you can't do it inside, you cannot do it outside. You physiologically cannot. Okay? Your body is made brilliantly and it's going to do the best to adapt, right? Which is like sleep and all of that. But if you're not aware of certain patterns that you're developing in your breathing, and you don't pay attention to your breathing at all, then you're setting yourself up for more of a struggle than you actually need to face. Okay? So how do we build carbon dioxide tolerance? So as I explained, that is the carbon dioxide is the trigger for you. Oh, I actually didn't mention this comment. It is the trigger to make you breathe. Not only is it the trigger to release the oxygen from the hemoglobin, it's what tells you to breathe. It says, I need more breath. Okay, so when you're skating, I want you to start noticing how am I breathing versus when I'm sitting on the bench versus when I'm home listening, right now in front of these Zooms. All of those breaths are going to be slightly different. Okay, but knowing how to make them efficient is important, because if you're ruminating on your thoughts sitting, maybe your parents are talking to you and praising you, like Corey said, and you're like, yes, okay, great, I'm so excited. And you're walking around with your mouth open, or you're talking a lot because you're explaining everything that you're doing, you're losing carbon dioxide a lot. Okay, so talking a lot, actually, if you don't reset that, it can start to actually create anxiety. Working out a lot with your mouth open can create anxiety when you're not working out. Okay, and anxiety plays on the mentality. It says I'm not good enough, because physiologically that's the message. It doesn't have enough oxygen, it doesn't have enough energy. Okay, so we're going to turn up your breath game. Let me check the time here. Oh, we're at our time, but okay, this is just information about why you would want to turn up your breath game, right? To reduce the panic response, to reduce how distracted you might get, right? How to work under pressure better, and to delay the onset of fatigue. Okay, we all want those things as an athlete. Okay, so look at it. You see me? That's me wearing a sports mask. You are not starting here. You're wearing a sports mask actually resists the air coming in and utilizes the diaphragm more. Okay, this is something that we're not going to do yet. Okay, we're going to start off just by stopping the loss of carbon dioxide. Improve your tolerance. One way to do that is known as stimulating high altitude training, which means you're playing with the amount of oxygen in the air that you have access to. Okay, so if you create more carbon dioxide pressure, you're actually, okay, how do I use my oxygen? You're actually having to activate your spleen to make more hemoglobin. So it's actually making you more anaerobic efficient. So in those moments that you can't catch your breath or you're very anxious, you can be more efficient with your energy production, and your nervous system won't be so protective, and then you can thrive. When we're protecting ourselves, it's harder to thrive. The system to protect closes in and tenses. typically, or dissociates it, it empties itself. When we're engaged, then we're thriving, then we're a part of it, then we're listening, then we're absorbing, we're having that AA, or the A mentality, because we can absorb the information. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about supporting your body detoxification, which is why we're only starting at the just to incorporate it a little bit in your lives right now. Okay, this, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of people that tape their mouth when they sleep. Okay, we can get into more information about this. Just think of the concept. If you're sleeping with your mouth open, that air coming in and out is very shallow. You're not actually creating any pressure inside. A pressure would be a slower, deeper breath. Right? The pressure that is ideal is that when you exhale fully, there's a pause. You don't have to take an inhale right away because you have all that you need. If you don't have that pressure, you have to inhale right away. But when you have the pressure and you have all that you need, there's a pause after you exhale. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions on that? That's a huge piece to realize. A slower, deeper breath with a pause after the exhale means you have enough carbon dioxide tolerance. When we're super sensitive to what people say and to what's going on around us, we do not have a good carbon dioxide tolerance. It's too much. We don't have enough energy to deal with it all. Okay, so one way to do it is to stop sighing. Suppress your sigh, right? You're letting go of oxygen. I teach sighing for another reason. Sighing is actually a great part of breathing. But when you're working on carbon dioxide tolerance, no to sighing, no to yawning. Minimize talking. Talk in the game, be present, be active in your energy. But later, close the mouth, breathe through your nose. That's your recovery. You're waiting to go on the ice, your mouth is closed, you're taking slow, deep breaths. Okay? Yes, talk here and there, but prepare your body to create carbon dioxide tolerance. Okay? So here's just a graph that shows you the normal people, normal breathers, normal breath rate is 12 breaths per minute. But an optimal, 6. Slow it down. Okay? All right, here's your warm-up. Okay? Before you do your exercises, I don't know, before you go out the door to go to school, think of it. I'm warming up to improve my breathing so that I can be a better version of me, right? All those reasons. Okay, this is what you're going to do. You're going to take a small breath in and a small breath out. We say small because it's normal. You're not going to be like, that's not what we're doing. It's a normal breath in and out. Okay. Then after you exhale, breath out, small breath out, you're going to hold your breath. And we plug the nose because there is some air that could get through the nose. And it's a nice feedback because the nose actually helps you make nitric oxide. I'll talk about it another time. It gives a whole great thing for you. But here, hold 2 to 5 seconds, then breathe normally 10 to 15 seconds, and then continue. So all you're doing in this warm-up is you're creating a breath hold of pressure. So instead of just going out and breathing however, like even those couple minutes, putting your awareness on the breath, how it altered your breath, this is going to prepare you to be able to tolerate more and work out more efficiently, create more tolerance. Okay, so you just do that for 5 minutes or 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, but do it consistently every day to improve your tolerance. Okay, and look at this real quick before we sign off. These are side effects of detoxification, meaning you're actually getting rid of the processes that have been on hold in your body because you haven't had the energy to deal with them. So if you have poor breathing and you have lots of lactic acid and you are stressed, you have chemicals in your body that because you're not breathing well, they're not able to get rid of it. So then you get more fatigue, right? And you feel more grumpy and you kind of hate life sometimes in that zone, or you hate things or people. You're irritated. It's a buildup of things that are not leaving your body because you don't have the proper ability to eliminate them. So when you start improving and changing that pH by working the carbon dioxide tolerance, these are things that can happen. Look, they might seem pretty bad. And if you're in playoffs, I'm only giving you like a little bit to do. So you shouldn't feel these things. But if you do, trust that it's because you're actually empowering and cleansing and taking care of your body in a better way. Because carbon dioxide tolerance, to work on it in the bigger plan every day, is going to improve your game immensely and your concentration and your mentality. Okay, so these things can happen, but they are not you being sick. They're you getting rid of things that have built up in your system. Okay, little quote here. The most successful individuals actively track their progress and recognize their efforts, and so that they know how to improve them. I'm going to work with that next time we meet next month, if that's okay with you, Corey. I'm going to give you a way to measure your carbon dioxide tolerance.
Sounds good, buddy. All right. I know we went over a little bit today, but I think it's a lot of good stuff. I can't wait to learn about a lot of things. I'm taking notes here. Like your panic response, like when I played, I hated that feeling, right? Or feeling fatigued was awful. So, we learn how to de-stress, get rid of some lactic acid, and understanding too that it's always ongoing, what Katie's talking about, this constant practice. So you kids make sure that you're doing that. Now I know a few of us have jumped off because they've got games and such, but that does it for this month. Make sure you're jumping on the site too and watching those videos. I'm gonna be uploading and putting some more content on, and we're gonna look at bringing Katie back because I think it's very valuable. But I also want to bring some kids that are playing in the OHL, and hopefully I can maybe land a couple of pro hockey players and we can do some Q&A with them as well. So lots of good things looking forward to. If you want or have any questions, you want to stick around, you can do. What do you guys say to Katie? What do you say?
Thank you.
Thank
you, Katie. Thank you.
She's part of the team now. She's on board. She's one of us. So
Thank you, Corey.
you're welcome, guys. Good luck. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Okay.
Thank you.
See you, Hayden. See you guys. See you later.
Thanks, Corey. Thanks, Coach Corey.
Welcome, buddy.
Thank you, Corey.
Good job.
Corey.
Yeah, boys. Later. You can stick around if you got questions. Kate, C, McCray, Jer. Good to see you, bud. See you, Mace. See you, buddy.